On the day Fatu married Kofi, she believed she had found her forever. The kind of love people envied in whispered prayers, the kind of man who made her laugh without trying, who looked at her like no one else existed. Under golden skies and soft vows, she promised him everything: heart, soul, future. She believed that trust was the strongest thread in the fabric of her marriage, not money, not even love, but trust, the quiet, unshakable belief that no matter what happened, Kofi had her back. Or so she thought, because once, before the vows and the house and the smiles at parties, it all began in a lecture hall at the University of Ghana. She was the quiet girl in oversized sweaters who buried her head in books. He was the charming senior who made everyone laugh without even trying. Kofi had a confidence that pulled people in, tall, well dressed, with an easy smile and a deep voice that made everything sound like a promise. When he spoke to Fatu, it was like she was the only person in the room, and that made her feel special, seen. Their love grew fast, like fire catching dry grass. He brought her flowers every week during final exams. She'd sneak out of her hostel just to hear him talk about his dreams. He promised her a life of stability, laughter, and partnership, and he delivered at first. Now, 5 years into their marriage, Fatu was 29, running her small home decor business online, while Kofi worked as a corporate consultant. On paper, they looked perfect. People praised them at parties. Power couple, they'd say. God really joined you two. But lately, God felt far away, and so did Kofi. He came home later than usual. His excuses were always soft spoken and reasonable. Work was crazy. Client kept me late. You know how it is. But Fatu did know how it was, and something wasn't right. She noticed how he no longer looked at her when he spoke, how he barely touched her anymore. Some nights he would turn his back to her in bed, breathing steadily, while her eyes stayed wide open in the dark. At first she told herself not to overthink. Maybe he was stressed. Maybe the spark had simply dimmed with time. Relationships go through phases, right? But then the signs grew louder. He started showering as soon as he walked in the door, every night, as if washing away something before facing her. He became protective of his phone, never leaving it unattended. Once she saw him smiling at a message, but when she asked who it was, he just said, "Work stuff," and changed the subject. She checked his laundry one day and found a receipt for dinner at a place they had never been to together. 2 entrees, one dessert, a wine pairing. Then came the moment that cracked her open. One evening, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. She hadn't planned to look, but her eyes moved before her brain could stop them. "I miss you already. I can't wait for our next time together." Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her throat tightened. Everything went still. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was truth. Kofi, her Kofi, was cheating. Fatu sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking. Her skin prickled with cold. The man she had loved, trusted, defended, had betrayed her. But who was the woman? Who was bold enough to take what wasn't hers? Fatu didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't even confront Kofi, not yet. Instead, she watched, quietly, carefully. Late at night, when he was asleep beside her, his face peaceful, like a man without guilt, she'd scroll through his call logs and message history. She knew his passcode. He'd never changed it. That alone almost made her laugh, as if he still believed he had nothing to hide. One name kept showing up: Laika. Fatu's stomach turned at the sight of it. Laika was no stranger. In fact, Fatu had known her for years. She had been at their wedding, smiling wide in a gold gown, sipping champagne like she belonged there more than the bride did. Laika was the kind of woman who entered a room like she owned it. Early 30s, business sharp, skin like polished bronze. She wore expensive silk blouses and diamond-studded watches, even to brunch. Her lips were always painted a bold red, and her perfume lingered long after she'd gone. Fatu remembered how Laika laughed, loud and carefree whenever Kofi told a story, even if it wasn't funny. How her hand would linger just a little too long on his arm. How she never once addressed Fatu directly when Kofi was around, like she was invisible furniture in her own home. Kofi had always brushed it off. She's just a friend. You're reading into it. Don't be insecure, Fatu. Now the lies were unraveling. Fatu knew better. She scrolled through the calls, Laika's name over and over again. Long calls, late night calls, quick ones during lunch breaks. Her mind started connecting the dots. Laika was single, always had been, and she and Kofi had history. He'd mentioned once that they used to study together. That was years ago. But maybe something had started then. Maybe it had never stopped. Every time Fatu had asked about her, Kofi had looked annoyed, almost offended. You really don't trust me, he would say. The irony burned now. She remembered the dinner party last month. Laika had shown up in a red backless dress and laughed all night beside Kofi. Fatu had sat at the end of the table, watching their chemistry dance like fire. That night she cried in the bathroom while the guests toasted their perfect marriage. Now she knew why it had hurt so much, because deep down she already knew, but knowing wasn't enough. Fatu wanted proof. She wanted to catch them, wanted Leica to see her face, to know that the wife she ignored was no fool. If Leica thought she could steal her husband, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. Fatu was done playing the quiet, patient wife. She was going to catch them in the act, and this time Kofi would have no words, no lies, no escape. Fatu didn't remember most of the drive. Her mind had splintered into sharp, erratic thoughts. Her chest was tight, her throat dry, her grip on the steering wheel white-knuckled. All she could see in her mind was that text. I miss you already. I can't wait for our next time together. She hadn't eaten. Her hands shook. She had driven past the restaurant twice before she finally pulled over and parked across the street. From her car, she could see inside. The flicker of candlelight, the white tablecloth, the glow of a wineglass being raised, and at the center of it all, Kofi. Her husband looked like a man in love. He was leaning forward, laughing like the world was light and easy. That laugh, the one he hadn't shared with her in months, the one that used to fill their living room at midnight, wrapped in blankets and love. And there was Leica, sitting across from him, regal, confident. That emerald dress clung to her figure like it belonged there. She tilted her head when she spoke. She smiled at Kofi like he was the most fascinating thing in the room. They looked good together. Too good. For a brief second, something in Fatu broke quietly. A whisper inside her said, just leave. Walk away. Don't do this. But she had already come too far. She walked into that restaurant with her chin high, her heart splintered, and her soul ready to make noise. Her heels echoed on the floor like war drums. The hostess asked if she had a reservation. Fatu didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on them. When Kofi saw her, his smile vanished like smoke. He straightened, his eyes wide. Laika blinked, slowly setting down her glass. Fatu reached the table and, without a word, snatched the glass of wine and flung it straight into Laika's face. Gasps ripped through the restaurant like a gunshot. Laika reeled back, red wine staining her dress, dripping from her lashes. Her hand flew to her face. For the first time, she looked human, but only for a second. She blinked slowly, then grabbed a napkin and calmly began dabbing her face. Well, she muttered, that was dramatic. Fatu didn't look at her. Her voice shook as she turned to Kofi. How long? She said. How long have you been screwing her behind my back? Kofi stood quickly, reaching for her wrist. Fatu, what the hell are you doing? Answer me, she shouted. Her voice cracked. Her chest heaved. You lied to me. You let me sleep beside you while you built a second life, in secret, with her. Kofi's face turned red, not with guilt, but with embarrassment. Eyes darted across the room. People were watching. Phones were coming out. Can we please take this outside? He whispered through clenched teeth. No, she snapped. Say it. Say it right here. You've already humiliated me in private. Might as well finish the job in public. Laika stood quietly, adjusting her clutch, not saying another word. She didn't look smug. She looked done. She left without speaking, heels clicking a goodbye down the hallway. Fatu turned back to Kofi, eyes full of rage and heartbreak. I gave you everything. Did you ever even love me? Kofi looked at her. No rage, no apology, just something in between. Fatu, you're blowing this out of proportion. Out of proportion? Her voice dropped an octave. She was shaking. I saw the message. I read the message. I miss you already. Can't wait for next time. That wasn't business talk, Kofi. That was a confession. Silence. Then he sighed. Slow, measured, cold. Let's talk outside. The door slammed shut behind them as they stepped onto the pavement. The city was loud, but around them everything felt quiet, too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. Kofi walked ahead, fast, trying to get away from the stairs still burning behind glass. Fatu followed, her heart pounding, her rage bubbling to the surface like lava with nowhere left to go. Say something, she hissed. Now that we're outside, say something that makes this make sense. He turned around sharply. I told you, it's not what you think. Then what is it, Kofi? She shouted, voice hoarse. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been cheating on your wife and lying about it like it's your second language. His jaw tightened. His hands went to his hips. Not guilt, frustration. You've been reading too much into everything. I never touched Leica. You're making something out of nothing. Stop acting crazy. She laughed, dry, bitter, almost mad. I found the receipt. Dinner for two at a restaurant we've never been to. I found the perfume. I found the message. And you still stand here and lie to my face? I told you, I didn't cheat, he said, louder now. I don't care what you think you saw or read. You're twisting everything to fit your story. That broke her. Tears spilled fast and hot. Not from weakness, from rage. My story? You made me feel like I was losing my mind, Kofi, like I was crazy, like I was paranoid, while you were, what, playing house with someone else and pretending I didn't exist? He turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of the street with nothing but questions clawing at her ribs. Fatu didn't follow him. She couldn't. Her legs wouldn't move. Her body was frozen in place, but her mind raced. A cold gust of wind whipped through her coat, but she didn't flinch. She just stood there, mouth dry, chest hollow, heart breaking itself in silence. Her mother opened the door in her wrapper and headscarf. Fatu! One look at her daughter's face, and the questions died in her throat. You can stay as long as you need, her father said from the hallway. Fatu nodded, said nothing, and went straight to the spare room. She didn't sleep. She was planning her next move. She put her plan into motion the next morning. She texted Kofi. The message was short. My aunt passed. I have to go to the village for a few days. Back Sunday. A lie, but a calculated one. She needed Kofi relaxed, unbothered, unprepared. At 11:36 a.m. he replied, Sorry to hear. Safe trip. No call, no offer to come with her, no emotion, just a response. That told her everything. By midnight, Fatu was still at her parents' house, phone in her hand like it was all day long, staring at the screen open to the GPS tracker on Kofi's device. The blue dot hadn't moved in hours. Still, predictable, normal. But nothing about this week felt normal. She stared at the screen for what felt like forever. Then, at 12:19 a.m., the dot moved. He was leaving the house. She leaned in. A liquor store. Her pulse quickened. This late? For what? Who? She grabbed her keys. No more waiting. She wasn't just going to confirm her suspicions. She was going to catch everything. 10 minutes later, Fatu parked at the end of their street. Far enough not to be noticed, close enough to see the house. She turned off her headlights. waited. Then Kofi's car pulled into the driveway, but he wasn't alone. A second car followed, dark, quiet. Fatu gasped. He had brought someone back. Someone private. She gave it a few minutes. Then she moved around the back, through the unlocked gate, into her own home, like a thief. The hallway smelled like the same diffuser she'd always used, lavender and clean linen, but tonight it made her stomach turn. No TV, no music, just light coming from upstairs. The bedroom. She took out her phone, camera open, finger hovering. Each step up the stairs felt heavier than the last. At the top, the door was cracked open. She pushed it open, phone up, camera rolling, truth ready to be caught. But what she saw, it wasn't Laker. It wasn't even close. There on the bed, Kofi and another man, Tunde, Kofi's best friend, the man that has been in their lives for years, the man she had cooked for, laughed with, trusted. They were tangled together, shirtless, breathless, lost in each other. The intimacy was real, deep, like this wasn't the first time. It didn't make sense at first. Her brain wouldn't connect the images. She had imagined betrayal in every shape, but not this one. She staggered backward. Kofi turned, startled. His smile vanished. Fatu, she stumbled back, her knees almost buckling. No! Her voice was a whisper. No, no, no! Her heart raced, her chest crushed under the weight of a truth she never saw coming. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Her voice was barely air. You brought him here? Into our bed? She didn't look at Tunde. Couldn't. Her body wouldn't let her. I gave you everything, Kofi, my loyalty, my time, and you gave me this. Kofi sat up, his face pale. He fumbled for his shirt, his lips trembling. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Her hands shook. You let me drown in doubt. You made me question my sanity. You let me believe it was Laker. You made me feel like I wasn't enough. All this time. Kofi's voice broke. I didn't mean to hurt you. I couldn't live a lie anymore. Fatu's eyes burned. But you lived it. In my house. With him. Why did you marry me, Kofi? She screamed, tears spilling down her face. Why did you make me your cover? Your wife? Your puppet? He looked at her, eyes full of something that wasn't guilt, but pain. Because I had no choice. The words hit her like a slap. My family, society. I couldn't be who I am, so I tried to be what they wanted, what you wanted. Her body jerked backwards like she'd been hit in the chest. The silence that followed was unbearable. Fatu stared at him, at Tunde, at the room that no longer belonged to her. Then, slowly, she backed away and whispered the last words she had left. I don't even know who you are. She turned and left, walking down the stairs with legs that barely held her weight, the sound of her own breath louder than anything else in the world. But as she reached the door, she stopped and looked at her phone, still recording. When she got back to her parents' house, Fatu didn't cry. She didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't curl up on her parents' couch in shame. Instead, she sat at the edge of her childhood bed, staring at the video still playing on her phone. Kofi, Tunde, their bed. She watched it twice, not because she didn't believe it the first time, but because she needed to burn the denial out of her bones. It didn't hurt the way she thought it would. It felt quiet, like something had died. Not love, not trust, delusion. Her phone buzzed, a message from Kofi. Please, don't do anything stupid. Let's talk. The audacity. She stared at the screen for a long second, then typed, You had years to talk. Blocked. Next, she opened the group chat. The family, Kofi's side. A space once filled with prayer emojis, wedding anniversary gifts, and forwarded devotionals. She hovered over the message bar, heart racing, not with fear, with precision. She uploaded the video, no caption, no explanation, just the file. Send. The moment it left her phone, she exhaled. Not relief, release. Let them see, let them gasp, let them call her bitter, let them pretend they didn't suspect. She didn't care anymore. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth. And truth? Truth was never polite. Within an hour, her phone blew up. Missed calls, voice notes, long winded messages from Kofi's uncle in Kumasi, one from his pastor, a string of frantic texts from his sister. Fatu, please call me. Why would you post that? You're hurting everyone. She didn't respond, because for 5 years she was the one bleeding in silence while they praised Kofi's leadership. Now, everyone would feel it. She stood up, went outside, lit the fire pit in her parents' backyard. One by one, she dropped his things into the flame. Cologne, a tie, a framed photo from their honeymoon in Cape Town. She watched the glass crack and melt. This is what truth costs, she whispered. And for the first time in a long time, she felt clean. Within 48 hours, the collapse began. First to go was his family. His father called her once, long enough to say, "We didn't raise a son like that," before hanging up. His mother didn't say anything at all, but her silence was louder than words. By the weekend, Kofi's number was removed from the family WhatsApp group, his childhood photos scrubbed from Facebook. Fatu knew what that meant. In their world, disgrace wasn't punished with words. It was punished with absence. Next was his business. His brand deals vanished. Clients pulled out, citing moral misalignment. His face disappeared from company flyers. His office door, once embossed with gold letters, was now shut and empty. She watched it all unfold, not with glee, but with the cold satisfaction of a woman who had been forced to become her own justice system. The house they had shared was now hers. He hadn't come back for his things. The sheets still smelled like betrayal. She thought it was over, but then he showed up at her parents' house. The sun was just beginning to rise. The air was still. Birds chirped. And there he was, standing on the front porch in yesterday's clothes, dark circles under his eyes, his jaw tight with rage. Fatu opened the door, stunned. He didn't wait for an invitation. He pushed past her, straight into the living room, where her mother was seated with a prayer book in her lap, and her father sipped tea in silence. Everyone froze. The front door hadn't even closed before the tension hit like a slap. His eyes locked onto hers, red, glassy, haunted. "You wanted to expose secrets?" he said, his voice low but shaking. "Then let's talk about yours." Fatu's heart dropped. "Kofi, don't." But he was already turning to her parents, and what came next would shatter everything. Kofi stood in the living room, face drawn, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot, the ghost of the man he once was. But tonight he wasn't quiet, he wasn't ashamed, he wasn't broken, he was angry. Fatu's parents sat in silence, her mother with hands folded in her lap, her father, stiff and alert, watching Kofi with the eyes of a man trained to read danger long before it speaks. Fatu stepped in behind him, pulse thundering. "Kofi," she said, her voice low and warning, "don't do this here." He turned to her, slow and deliberate. "You wanted to destroy me, Fatu. You wanted to light a match and burn my life down in front of everyone." He looked at her parents. "Now let's talk about hers." Her father sat forward. "What is he talking about?" Fatu opened her mouth. "Don't listen to—" But Kofi didn't stop. "Tunde," he said. "Let's start with that name, shall we?" Silence. Her mother frowned. "Your friend?" Kofi smiled bitterly. "Oh, he's been many things. My friend, my distraction, my mistake." He looked at Fatu, but before he was mine, he was hers. The room cracked open. Her father stood. "What?" Fatu's heart dropped. "Number, that's not what happened." But Kofi kept going, the words like knives sharpened for years. "Years ago, while we were dating, before the wedding, Fatu had an affair with Tunde. her husband's best friend. Her mother gasped, clutching her chest. Fatu opened her mouth. It was before the engagement. I ended it. Because you got bored, Kofi snapped. Not because it was wrong. You kept it a secret, married me like nothing happened. And guess what? Tunde didn't forget. Fatu's chest caved in slowly. You think this was about love? Kofi's voice was trembling now. He never loved me. He used me to hurt you. The room went dead quiet. Kofi stared at her. His voice dropped to a whisper. He told me. He wanted to make you feel discarded, used, forgotten, and I was the weapon. Fatu's knees buckled. Tunde hadn't loved him. He'd weaponized him. Her past had created the present. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a setup years in the making. And now her family knew everything. This hadn't been a love triangle. This had been a trap built from years of resentment, silence, and secrets. And she hadn't just walked into it. She helped build it. The house was silent now. Not the peaceful kind, not the comforting stillness of a home at rest. It was the silence that follows destruction, the silence that fills a room after a scream so loud nothing else dares to follow it. Fatu sat alone in the living room, staring at the cold cup of tea her mother had abandoned hours ago. The air was thick with the echoes of everything Kofi had said. Every word was still hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. Tunde, the affair, the revenge, her past sins, the ones she had folded and hidden deep in the back of her memory like an old wedding dress, had been dragged into the light. Not just in front of Kofi, not just in front of her parents, but in front of herself. And it burned. She had thought exposing Kofi was the climax. Justice, the mic drop. But in the end, all she'd done was set fire to a room they were all still standing in. She had made Kofi fall. But he pulled her down with him. And Tunde had won. He didn't need to be there. He didn't need to say a word. He had orchestrated a reckoning years in the making, and they'd both played their parts perfectly. She remembered Tunde's smile back then, nervous, wide, too eager to please. She remembered thinking he was soft, harmless, a temporary thrill in a season of confusion. She never saw him as a threat, but she forgot what happens when you play with someone's heart and leave them bleeding with no closure, no explanation. You don't bury pain like that. You raise it, feed it, weaponize it. Tunde hadn't moved on. He had evolved, turned himself into the poison they never saw coming. And Kofi? Kofi had been many things, liar, coward, broken man. But now she saw the full picture. He wasn't just hiding from his truth. He had been searching for someone who would see him, and instead he found someone who wanted to destroy the both of them. She wanted revenge. She wanted justice. But now she just wanted to forget any of it ever happened. Then her phone buzzed. A message, no name, just a number. I told you, you never really knew me. Tunde. She stared at the screen. She didn't reply. Maybe it was too late to undo what was done. Maybe she would never be the same. But one thing was certain. When you set someone's world on fire, you better be sure you're not standing in it too. The truth had been detonated. Now came the smoke. Fatu didn't sleep that night. She didn't cry either. She sat at the edge of her bed, silent, still, broken but breathing. Her phone was off. Her world was off. She didn't want noise. She wanted silence, the kind of silence that hurt more than screams. Her mother hadn't spoken to her since the confrontation. Her father had left the house early. The air in the home was different now, stiff with judgment, thick with shame. Fatu wasn't just a victim anymore. She was also a villain, to them, to Kofi, to herself. She stepped into the kitchen, and the kettle was already whistling. Her mother stood there, stirring tea, her back turned, her shoulders square, her silence louder than any slap. I'm sorry, Fatu whispered. Her mother didn't turn around. She just said softly, You should have told us a long time ago. Then she walked away, leaving the tea behind. Fatu sat at the table, wrapping her hands around the hot mug, trying to remember who she was before all of this, before the secrets, before the trap, before she learned that love could be used as a weapon and trust as a disguise. That afternoon she left the house, not to run, not to hide, but to face what was left. Kofi had moved into a hotel. She didn't go there. She went to see someone else. Tunde. She found him. Of course she did. He hadn't gone far. A quiet apartment on the outskirts of the city. Clean, modern, cold. He opened the door like he expected her. Fatu, you came, he said, calm, unreadable. She stepped inside without a word. He didn't stop her. Inside, the house smelled like incense and fresh paint. A new life. No evidence of the old one. He walked ahead of her, not offering tea, not pretending this was civil. They stood in the center of his living room, two ghosts wearing the same skin they used to touch. She looked at him. Hard. Why? Her voice was low, controlled, too calm. Tunde tilted his head slightly. You want the real answer, or the one that still lets you sleep at night? The truth. He took a deep breath. Because you discarded me. Like I was a mistake you had to erase, and I let it go. For years. Until I realized I wasn't the only one pretending. You were too. Playing house with a man you didn't know. So I decided if I couldn't be loved, I'd be remembered. Fatu's eyes narrowed. So you used him. He let me, Tunde said coldly. He was just as desperate to be seen as I was to make you feel what I felt. You think I seduced him? He was already looking for a way out. I just handed him a key. Fatu took a step forward. You used my husband to break me. No, he said, eyes sharp. I used your ego. Silence. They stood there. History between them. Shame. Lust. Rage. All buried under years of pretending none of it happened. Then Fatu's voice dropped to a whisper. You really think this ends with that video? Tunde blinked. It already ended. You just don't know it yet. She smiled. Not warmth, not forgiveness, warning. You lit the fire, but don't forget, I know what burns you too. She turned, walked to the door, and opened it slowly. If you ever come near me again, directly or indirectly, I won't just destroy you, I'll erase you. And with that, she left. No more questions, no more tears. She had walked into the fire, and this time she knew there was no saving anyone from the burn. That night, Fatu opened a blank journal. She turned to the first page. She didn't write about Kofi. She didn't write about Tunde. She wrote one word: rebuild, not for them, not for vengeance, not for closure, for herself. Sometimes the fallout doesn't just break things, it erases them, burns everything down so nothing can lie anymore. And what's left is the truth, staring back at you, naked, ugly, unavoidable, daring you to survive it. I hope this story reminds you that sometimes the people we hurt the most are the ones who never got the chance to speak, and sometimes the enemies we fear the least are the ones building the sharpest knives behind our backs. In this story, no one was truly innocent. Not Fatu, not Kofi, not Tunde. They were all hiding truths, playing roles, wearing masks, and in the end, those masks came off, not with grace, but with fire. When you betray someone and walk away untouched, don't mistake silence for forgiveness. People don't always come back for closure. Some come back to finish the story their way. Choose truth, choose healing, or prepare for war, because the longer you bury your secrets, the louder they scream when they rise.